This is mathheals.com. You can go here if you want to find more videos, links to YouTube videos. Let's take a look at multiplying polynomials. And take a look at our first problem. There's really nothing new in this section that we haven't already discussed. We've got 5x times 2x minus 3. Now we got one term out in front, and we got two terms inside. Remember, terms are separated by pluses and minuses. So we're going to take this term that's out in front, we'll multiply it times the first term and times the second term. 5x next to parentheses indicates multiplications while we're doing that. So 5x times 2x and 5x times negative 3. Now remember, if you're multiplying monomials together, you multiply the numbers together first. 5 times 2 is 10. And x times x, this is like x to the first power times x to the first power. Remember, you add the exponents. 1 plus 1 gives us 2. So we got 10x squared. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15, and the x carries down. And that's our answer. Let's look at this one. We got 7w times 2w squared minus w plus 4. Now we got one term out in front. We got three terms inside. Again, that term next to parentheses indicates multiplication. So we'll take 7w times the first term, times the second term, and times the third term. So we got 7w times 2w squared. We got 7w times negative w, and 7w times 4. Well, 7 times 2 is 14. This is like w to the first power, so w to the first power times w squared, you add the exponents. 1 plus 2 gives us 3. So we got w to the third. Positive times a negative is negative. The 7 carries down. W times w is w squared. And 7 times 4 is 28, and the w carries down. And that's our answer. Number 3, we have x plus 8 times x plus 3. Now we got two terms in the first parentheses, we got two terms in the second parentheses. So we're going to take our first term in the first parentheses, multiply it times each term in the second set of parentheses. And then we'll take our second term, which is the 8, and multiply it times each term over there. Well, I got x times x. I got x times 3. I got 8 times x. And I got 8 times 3. So you just follow the lines. It's very easy to do when deciding how to multiply everything together. Well, x times x is x squared. Remember, you add the exponents. X times 3 is 3x. 8 times x is 8x. And 8 times 3 gives us 24. Now, no matter where you are in math, you should combine together like terms. Like terms are the same variable, the same power. Here's x to the first, here's x to the first. Now, to combine together like terms, you add or subtract the numbers that are out in front. Well, 3 plus 8 gives us 11x. And 24 carries down. Now you want to make sure it's in standard form from largest power down to smallest, which we're okay. Let's look at another one. So we got 5x minus 3y times 2x plus 4y. So we'll take our first term in our first parentheses, the 5x, multiply it times the 2x and times the 2y. Then we'll take our second term, the negative 3y, and multiply it times the 2x and times the 4y. Let me write out what I just said. 5x times 2x, 5x times 4y, negative 3y times 2x, and negative 3y times 4y. So again, I'm just following the lines on what to multiply together. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. X times x is x squared. 5 times 4 is 20. And then the x and the y we just put next to each other in alphabetical order. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And I'll put the x and y next to each other in alphabetical order. Since they're different variables, we don't actually multiply them together. Just put them next to each other. Which is multiplication, but not like what you might think. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Y times y gives us y squared. Well, no matter where you're at, combine together like terms. Xy, xy, these both have the same variables, the same power. So I'll add or subtract the numbers that are out in front. Well, we got 20 minus 6, which gives us 14xy. And I'll bring down the minus 12y squared. Now this may look like it's not in standard form. Largest power down to smallest. But with standard form, we pick a variable and we go from largest power down to smallest. So here we have x squared, x, no x. So this is actually in standard form. Look at our fifth example. N minus 2 times n plus 3. Okay, so we got two terms in our first parentheses, we got two terms in our second parentheses. So I'll take my first term, the n, multiply it times the n over here, and times the 3. I'll take the second term here, the negative 2, multiply it times the n, and times the 3. Well, n times n times 3, negative 2 times n, and negative 2 times 3. Well, n times n is n squared, n times 3 is 3n, negative 2 times n is negative 2n, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. No matter where you are in math, combine together like terms. 3n minus 2n gives us 1n, or just n, minus 6. And that's our answer. Now they say to use the FOIL method on this. I'll mention it. I really like the line method best of all. I don't really show the FOIL method very much, if at all. I had a professor in one of my graduate classes one time made a comment about how FOIL was one of the worst things that happened to algebra. And of course I'm sitting there immediately thinking, I wonder why he said that. And somebody else in the class asked him, and I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, if you have to ask that question, you wouldn't understand the answer. And I did a lot of thinking about that. And the only thing I can think of is that people don't know when to FOIL. You can only FOIL when you got two terms and two terms. A binomial times a binomial. And that's where it becomes a problem, is people start trying to use it all over the place. I like the line method because it works 100% of the time. Now FOIL means you multiply the first parts together. So n times n. The outer parts, n times 3. The inner parts, negative 2 times n. And the last parts, negative 2 and 3. So these kind of correspond with what we're already doing anyway. And that's about as much as I'm going to show you in terms of the FOIL method. So let's look at our sixth one. We got x plus 5 times x minus 5. Well, we got two terms in the first parentheses, two terms in the second parentheses. So I'm going to take this this first term here, multiply it times every term over here. And I'll take our second term, the 5, and multiply it times every term over here. So we got x times x. We got x times negative 5. Then we got 5 times x. And we got 5 times negative 5. So x times negative 5, 5 times x, and 5 times negative 5. Well, x times x is x squared. X times negative 5, just put the number first, negative 5x. 5 times x, just 5x. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Combine together like terms at any step. Negative 5x plus 5x would actually cancel away and leaves us x squared minus 25. Now these have a special name. They're called conjugates. You'll see this a lot in intermediate algebra. Not a lot, but you'll see it more in intermediate algebra. Basically, your first parts are the same. This is x, this is x. Your last parts are the same. This is 5, this is 5. The sign in the middle is different. This is positive and this is negative. Now, when you got conjugates, all you have to do is multiply your first parts together, x times x, and get x squared, and your last parts. 5 times negative 5 gives you negative 25. If you recognize their conjugates. Now, if you don't recognize them, no big deal. As you can see, they'll cancel away anyway. Let's take a look at this one. We got 2x squared minus 5 times 2x squared plus 5. And it says find a product, sum, difference, two terms again. Well, look at this. 2x squared, 2x squared. 5, 5. Sign in the middle is different. These are conjugates. So all we have to do is multiply the first parts together. 2x squared times 2x squared. And the last parts, negative 5 times 5. Again, if you don't see it, no problem. If you multiply everything together, your middle terms will drop away anyway. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. X squared times x squared. You add the exponents, and that gives us x to the fourth. Minus 5 times 5 is 25. And that's our answer. This is a little bit of a tricky one. 4x minus 3y squared. And they put this in here to, not to trick you up, but to really emphasize this, because a lot of people miss this one. They square the 4x and they square the 3y. Well, remember, the only time you can do that is when everything is multiplication or division inside of parentheses. We got a minus in here. This is not everything's multiplication or division. So when we say squared, well, we have to rewrite this as 4x minus 3y times 4x minus 3y. Now again, we have two terms times two terms. So we'll take this first term, the 4x, multiply it times the 4x over there, and times the negative 3y. Now we'll take our second term, the negative 3y, and multiply it times the 4x, and times the negative 3y. Let me write out what I just said. 4x times 4x, 4x times negative 3y, negative 3y times 4x, and negative 3y times negative 3y. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. X times x is x squared. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, and we'll put the x and y next to each other. Alphabetical order. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and put the x and y next to each other in alphabetical order. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, and y times y gives you y squared. Now again, no matter where you are in math, if you can combine together like terms, go ahead and do that. Negative 12xy and negative 12xy. They both have an xy. Same variable to the same powers. So we'll add numbers in front. Negative 12 gives us negative 24xy. And I'll carry down to 9y squared. And this is in standard form, going from largest power down to smallest in terms of x's. X squared, x the first, no x. There's actually a formula for this one, by the way. As weird as that seems, it's so easy to do this way. I'm not sure why you'd want to memorize another formula. But yeah. Let's take a look at this. We've got 3x minus 1 times 4x squared plus 2x minus 5. Now again, the neat part about the line method is it doesn't matter what it looks like. It tells you exactly what to multiply together. This is two terms, this is three terms. So I take my first term here, the 3x, multiply it times the 4x squared, times the 2x, and times the negative 5. Then we'll take our second term, the negative 1, and multiply it times the 4x squared, times the 2x, and times the negative 5. Well, we got 3x times 4x squared. We got 3x times 2x, 3x times negative 5, and we have the negative 1 times 4x squared. We have the negative 1 times 2x, and negative 1 times negative 5. So again, I'm just following the lines and deciding what to multiply together. Now 3 times 3 3 times 4 is 12. And x times x squared, you add the exponents, this is like first power, so 1 plus 2 gives us 3. 3 times 2 gives us 6x squared. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15x. Negative 1 times 4x squared, that gives us negative 4x squared. Negative 1 times 2x gives us negative 2x. And negative 1 times a negative 5 gives us a positive 5. Well, combine together like terms. 12x third carries down. We got 6x squared minus 2x squared. 6 minus 4 is 2, so we got 2x squared. We got negative 15x and negative 2x. That gives us negative 17x, and then I'll carry down the plus 5. And that's our answer. Let's see, 4x squared minus 5x plus 2 times x to the third plus 3x minus 1. And we'll multiply these together. Now again, I really haven't read the instructions on any of these because I like to use the line method on every one of them. So if you got multiplication of polynomials, very easy way to do it. Okay, we got 3 terms here, we got 3 terms here. Going to have a lot of lines. So we'll have 4x squared times the first term, times the second term, and times the third term. We'll have the negative 5x times the first term, times the second term, and times the third term. And we'll have the 2, the third term, times the first term over here, times second term, and times the third term. Okay, so let's write down what the lines are telling us. So we got 4x squared times x to the third. We have 4x squared times 3x. We have 4x squared times negative 1. Then we have negative 5x times x to the third. We have negative 5x times 3x. Negative 5x times negative 1. And we have 2 times x to the third. We have 2 times 3x. And we got 2 times negative 1. Now let me do some checking here and make sure I didn't write anything down wrong. X to the third, 3x, x to the third, 3x, x to the third, 3x. Okay. 4x squared times x to the third. 4 carries along, x squared times x to the third. You add the exponents. 2 plus 3 gives us 5, so we got x to the fifth. Plus 4 times 3 is 12. X squared times x. This is like the first power, so we add the exponents. Now it gives us 3. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 x squared minus 5x to the fourth. This is the first power. X to the first times x to the third is x to the fourth. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. X times x is x squared. Negative 5 times negative 1 is a positive 5, and then the x carries down. Okay. Boy, my eyes are going. There it is. 2x to the third. 2 times 3x gives us 6x. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. It is past my bedtime at 6:30. Let me check this. 12x to the third minus 4x squared minus 5x to the fourth minus 15x squared plus 5x plus 2x to the third plus 6x minus 2. Okay. Now combine together like terms. So we got 4x to the fifth. So that's taken care of. We got minus 5x to the fourth. Now here's next to the third. Here's next to the third. 12x to the third plus 2x to the third gives us 14x to the third. Here's an x squared. Here's an x squared. I guess that's it. Negative 4x squared, negative 5x squared gives us negative 19x squared. Here's an x and here's an x. 5x plus 6x gives us 11x. And then the minus 2. And assuming I didn't multiply or add or subtract something wrong, that would be our answer. And I think the end of that video.